Hello, everyone. Imagine you are an ice cream business entrepreneur and you need to know your costs better. As for direct costs, everything seems clear. Let's look at this example. Finding out material cost is not difficult here. As an entrepreneur, you know your total cost figure and number of units sold. Then, in order to find the material cost per unit, you have to divide one over the other. In the same way, you can find other direct costs per unit, the costs like labor and direct expenses. The other thing is indirect production costs that cannot be directly attributed to units of production. Let us consider public utility expenses, namely electricity expense. How can you trace the electricity expense to 1 unit of an ice cream that is sold? You may ask, why should we trace these expenses to units of our production at all? What is the rationale behind it? There are 3 practical reasons. The first reason is related to inventory valuations. If your cost per unit doesn't reflect indirect costs, that will affect closing inventory figure in the balance sheet as well as cost of goods sold in the income statement. The second reason refers to pricing decisions. You have to decide on prices for different types according to the costs they incur. Let's say type A and type B ice creams consume different volumes of indirect costs. It would be irrational to decide on the prices without considering this difference. Lastly, establishing profitability. You will not be able to get the objective profit figure until you include all production costs into a unit produced. Look at this example. All the direct costs are the same for both types of ice cream, and you may decide that they have the same profit figure. However, they might incur different levels of indirect costs, so your suggestions might be wrong. Going back to a problem of overheads absorption, let's consider the electricity expense. How can you trace it to 1 unit of your production? Let's suppose your production stages consist of homogenizing, pasteurizing, and packaging, and each of these steps takes a specific volume of power. By the technical characteristics and estimations, you allocate the total power volume as 40, 30, and 30 respectively. Then, by the same estimation, you allocate the percentages among types of production. So, looking more closely, if your total electricity cost is 200, the figures will look like the following. When you know the figures for each of the steps, you can find out the cost for each type of your production by multiplying the percentages allocated by the cost per the stage. Here is the result. Putting all the costs together, we see that even if the direct costs are the same for different types of an ice cream, the overheads are different, so by including them into the total cost, you will get a more fair figure of your profits. That's all for today, and thank you for your attention.